As the world moves into this critical February weekend, very few people realize how close we are to a fundamental break in the global financial system. Behind closed doors, far from public scrutiny and media headlines, a new banking rule has already been activated, and its consequences are far more severe than anything most people are prepared for. This rule does not arrive with a press conference or an emergency broadcast. It arrives quietly, deliberately, and strategically, because its purpose is not to protect you, but to contain you. What is unfolding right now represents a turning point where access to your own money is no longer guaranteed, and financial freedom becomes conditional on obedience to a collapsing system. While mainstream media outlets flood the public with political theater, celebrity scandals, and manufactured outrage, central planners are executing the final phase of a long-prepared liquidity control operation. For decades, people have been trained to believe that the numbers they see on a banking app represent real, accessible wealth. But the truth, now leaking through regulatory language and emergency protocols, is far more disturbing. Those digital numbers are not money in the traditional sense. They are permissions, and permissions can be revoked instantly when the system comes under stress. The activation of the so-called weekend banking rule is not coincidental. It is deliberate timing. By initiating this protocol late on a Friday, regulators gain a critical window of silence, nearly 48 hours where markets are closed, transactions are limited, and public reaction can be controlled. During this period, banks are legally empowered to restrict ATM withdrawals, delay electronic transfers, and freeze access under the justification of systemic stability. This is not speculation or a future scenario. It is now embedded in regulatory reality, activated precisely because the system can no longer withstand even a minor shock without risking total collapse. At the core of this emergency lies a financial black hole that can no longer be concealed. A banking gap exceeding $500 billion has forced regulators into a corner. The math no longer works. The liquidity simply does not exist. And once a sufficient number of depositors attempt to convert digital balances into physical cash, the illusion disintegrates instantly. This is why the emergency brake has been pulled before Monday morning. Officials understand that a single trading session under panic conditions would ignite a nationwide bank run that no institution could survive. What we are witnessing is not reform, it is containment. The legacy banking system is being shut down in a controlled manner because those on the inside know the debt structure has crossed the point of no return. With national debt levels soaring beyond any historical precedent and unrealized losses accumulating across regional and global banks, the strategy has shifted from saving the system to salvaging the insiders. Depositors are no longer customers. They are liabilities to be managed, delayed, and restricted. Bank executives were briefed under emergency conditions days before this weekend. The message was blunt and unmistakable. Preserve liquidity at all costs. Trust, reputation, and public confidence are secondary concerns. The survival of systemically important institutions takes priority, even if it means sacrificing the financial security of millions of ordinary people. This is the moment where the illusion of partnership between banks and the public officially ends. The danger is not theoretical. You are standing on a financial trapdoor engineered to open the moment the system experiences its next psychological shock. Whether that shock comes from a geopolitical event, a market crash, or a credit default cascade, the mechanism is already in place. And for anyone whose wealth exists entirely within the digital banking grid, the exits are being sealed quietly and efficiently. To understand why these restrictions are necessary from the system's perspective, you must confront the reality of physical currency reserves. Banks do not possess anywhere near the amount of cash required to honor depositor claims simultaneously. Vault levels are dangerously low, approaching conditions not seen since the darkest economic periods of modern history. The entire financial structure operates on confidence, not collateral. And once confidence breaks, the system cannot function for even a single day. This is why the weekend rule is so critical. It provides time to adjust ledgers, time to move privileged capital into protected positions, and time to prevent the public from acting on information that would expose the fragility of the system. While the average person is locked out of their own funds, the smart money is already repositioning into tangible assets beyond the reach of algorithms and emergency decrees. Despite reassurances from officials and financial commentators, the underlying plumbing of the global system is failing. Accounting tricks and regulatory opacity can no longer hide the reality that banks are insolvent in all but name. This is not a liquidity issue that can be resolved with temporary measures. It is a structural failure decades in the making. This is where physical silver enters the picture as more than just a commodity. In a system that is transitioning toward digital control and surveillance, silver represents independence. It has no counterparty risk. It cannot be frozen, deleted, or reprogrammed. It exists outside the banking grid. And that is precisely why it is becoming the focal point of global financial tension. China understood this reality long before the West acknowledged it. By systematically outbidding competitors and absorbing physical supply, China has positioned itself to dominate a market essential to modern civilization. Silver is not optional. It is foundational to technology, energy, and defense. As vaults in major financial centers empty, the consequences ripple outward through industrial supply chains, triggering shortages that cannot be solved by paper contracts or futures markets. The disconnect between paper pricing and physical reality is growing impossible to ignore. While screens display controlled prices, the real market tells a different story. Premiums are exploding. Delivery is failing. Insiders are paying whatever is required to secure physical metal because they know the delivery mechanism is broken. The institutions tasked with maintaining market stability no longer possess the inventory to do so. The weekend banking rule is designed to prevent retail investors from reacting to this realization. By restricting access and visibility, the system buys itself time to rebalance positions in darkness. This is not protection, it is deception, and it ensures that when repricing finally occurs, it will be violent, sudden, and irreversible. The transition now underway is not gradual, it is abrupt. Central bank digital currencies are not being introduced as convenience tools. They are control mechanisms designed to replace a failing system with one that offers total visibility and enforcement. Under such a framework, money becomes programmable. Spending becomes conditional. Freedom becomes permission-based. Physical silver stands in direct opposition to this future. It is private, untraceable, and independent. That is why the window for acquiring it is closing rapidly. Once the system fully locks down, access will be restricted not by price alone, but by availability. Those who wait for confirmation from official channels will find themselves locked out entirely. Internal reports from dozens of troubled banks reveal unrealized losses growing by the hour. The tools once used to disguise insolvency are exhausted. Emergency lending facilities, accounting exemptions, and regulatory forbearance have reached their limits. The only reason these institutions remain operational is to allow insiders time to secure their own positions before the public understands what is happening. The insurance mechanisms designed to protect depositors are mathematically incapable of fulfilling their promises. The gap is too large. The assets are insufficient. When the realization sets in, the response will be swift and unforgiving. Digital access will vanish, limits will tighten, and the narrative will shift from reassurance to justification. Silver's role in this moment cannot be overstated. It is the pressure point the system cannot control indefinitely. When the public finally recognizes that paper claims are meaningless without delivery, The rush into physical assets will eclipse anything seen in modern history. This will not be orderly. It will be chaotic, competitive, and permanent. History offers clear warnings. Monetary collapses do not unfold slowly once confidence breaks. They cascade. From past currency failures to modern financial crises, the pattern remains unchanged. Those holding real assets preserve purchasing power. Those holding promises do not. This weekend represents a psychological threshold. It is the final period where the illusion of control still exists. Once markets reopen under new constraints, the rules will have changed permanently. The smart money is not waiting. It has already moved. Vaults are full, positions are secured, and the burden of adjustment is being shifted onto the public. The banks facing the greatest risk are those exposed to collapsing commercial real estate values. Trillions in loans are coming due against collateral that no longer supports them. The losses are unavoidable, and the solution will not be rescue, but reset. You are being encouraged to remain distracted, passive, and compliant while the largest wealth transfer in history unfolds around you. But once awareness spreads, it will be too late to act. The mechanisms now in place are designed to ensure that this is not fear, it is structure, and structures dictate outcomes regardless of belief. The system has chosen its path. The only remaining variable is whether individuals recognize what is happening before the doors close completely. The price of silver will not rise politely. It will reprice violently. Psychological thresholds will break. Algorithms will fail. And the narrative will shift overnight from dismissal to desperation. When that moment arrives, there will be no second chance. The weekend rule is live. The reset has begun, and the financial world you were taught to trust is already gone, even if it hasn't admitted it yet. Those who prepare now will navigate what comes next with stability. Those who do not will be forced to adapt under conditions they did not choose. Stay alert. Stay grounded in reality. And understand that this moment will be remembered as the point where money stopped being abstract and became real again.